Right now at 5:30, significant developments in the Sean Combs sex trafficking and racketeering trial after the jury reaches a partial verdict.
Well, jurors say they reached a verdict on 4 of the 5 charges, but they couldn't come to a decision on the first charge of racketeering conspiracy. The judge sent jurors back to keep trying. Those deliberations will continue tomorrow morning.
Joining us now to help break down what this all means is attorney Rachel Fiset. Welcome, nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So as we mentioned, the jury hasn't been able to reach that decision on the first count of racketeering conspiracy. Can you tell us what exactly they need to prove here and why jurors may be having trouble with that particular charge?
Well, first off, if I am the defense team right now, I am very, very nervous that the 4 charges where they have reached a verdict are perhaps a conviction. And that is because the fact that they're hung up on the hardest of these 5 charges means that they have likely found that the 4 other charges, or at least some combination of them, that they have found that Sean Combs is likely guilty on those. And the reason I say that is because those acts where those charges would be found, where he would be convicted of those charges, those acts are necessary in many ways to get to any kind of decision on the RICO charges, which is a more difficult charge requiring an agreement to conspire for a criminal enterprise and at least one act in furtherance of that conspiracy. And I think that is likely difficult for the jury because who was he conspiring with? Were other people completely in on it in mutual agreement for the purpose of having these freak-offs as in the illicit purpose of this enterprise? And I think that is a more difficult thing to find. But again, to get to that place, it is very likely they have found him guilty on at least 2 of these other charges.
Okay, well, Attorney Fiset, we know that racketeering charge could carry a life in prison sentence, but jurors said they did reach a decision on the other charges, the sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution. Can you explain what kind of time Combs could face if he's convicted on just those 2 charges?
There are 2 sex trafficking charges, each with a minimum sentence of 15 years. They can go all the way to a life sentence on those charges. And then the other 2 charges for prostitution and the transportation for prostitution are 10-year sentence minimums. So he is really looking at a pretty lengthy sentence, given that he's 54 years old, and that the minimum time, if he is convicted of the first 2 trafficking sentences, if they are served concurrently, is 15 years.
So the defense presented their case very quickly compared to the prosecution especially, and they centered it mostly around text messages. Do you think these text messages hurt or help their case?
I think the text messages were difficult, and the length of the relationships that they were showing made it difficult in many ways to get to a place of sex trafficking or prostitution. Although I have to say, we are only 1 day into deliberations, 1 full day, and the jury has gotten to a partial verdict. So to me, it seems like they overcame the hurdle, likely given the quickness of those text messages, in order for them to say they're having a very difficult time finding any kind of verdict, either guilty or not guilty, on the RICO charges.
Well, a lot of people are asking if Diddy himself should have taken the stand. You followed this case, so what are your thoughts about that as an attorney? Would you have called him to the stand?
I would not have called him to the stand. There's really too much there, given a potential risk of perjury, given other criminal acts that they were discussing. I think it would have been difficult to call him to the stand. There was that video that everyone saw relating to force. There's not much he can say to defend it. So I don't know how much calling him to the stand would have helped their case, and it certainly could have hurt their case.
All right, lots of information there. We thank you so much, Attorney Rachel Fiset, for joining us. We'll wait and see what happens tomorrow.